Good day everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you had a great day so far. Happy New Year, and I hope everyone's enjoying themselves, staying safe and working hard. So today we will be looking at virtual hands for your VR project while we're using the XR system for our pipeline. So there is about 3 ways that I would be showing you today of setting up your virtual hands. One way is by doing just a normal cube for your hand, so you can just have a reference of where your hands are. The second one is showing your player controllers, so if you want to show them a certain button to press or anything like that, it will bring up the controller. And the third way is going to be actually showing you your virtual hands, real hands, and also be covering animation with that. This might be a bit long video, and I do apologize for the background noise. It is a few hours before New Year, so everyone's getting together, having a bit of a party, as small as we can go with this whole pandemic thing. So the first thing that we will be doing is we'll be going to our XR rig, and we're going to be selecting both of our hands. So there's about 2 ways that you can grab objects with the default XR scripts. The one way you automatically get when you create your XR rig by doing XR device and then room scale, and that is to grab something from a distance. So it does like a raycast with a line, and you'll be able to see if something's selected or not. But we don't want that. We actually don't want that. We actually want to grab objects when our hands are close to an object and when we want to grab it. So we are going to be removing the last 3 scripts, and we are going to be adding a XR direct interactor, sorry. And this will basically cover grabbing anything that's close to your hands, but at the moment it doesn't actually have any way to know if something is close to your hands. So we're gonna be adding a sphere collider, and we're gonna make it a trigger, and we're gonna scale it down to 0.2. Sorry, seems like my father is cutting grass, so I'll try my best to edit the audio out, but I can't make too big of a promises. So how I was, yeah, just scaling down the sphere so it would be basically the size of our hands. So the first way I'm going to be showing you of actually implementing your virtual hands is by just adding a normal cube so you know where your hands are. So we're going to make an empty game object, call it cube hands. I'm gonna zero it out, and then we're gonna make a 3D cube as a child. And the reason why I'm making a child is because I need to scale it down. And also make sure that your cube doesn't have a glider on it, otherwise the glider is gonna be screwing with each other. Then we're gonna take that cube, we're gonna make it a prefab, and then we're gonna delete it from our scene. I'm gonna select both your controllers, and you'll see in the XR controller main script, you will be able to see down here it says models, and you can activate your model prefab. Just throw it in there, and now if I grab my headset, press play, you would see basic cube as hands. So that's the easiest way of making your virtual hands. It's not that hard because there's no scripts involved or anything like that. It's just to visualize where your hands are. But we are gonna now gonna delete that cube, and we actually gonna create a script that will handle the second and third part. I'm just gonna make a basic script call it virtual hands or whatever you think it's necessary to be called, and then we're gonna make an empty game object. We're gonna call it hand for now, and we're gonna throw the script on it. Double click on a script to open it up. So the first thing that we're gonna be needing is the resources of XR. We need access to it, so we're going to be doing using Unity Engine.xr. Save. Second thing that we're going to be needing is your controller details. So this would be covering if it's your left hand or right hand. So we're gonna do a public input device characteristics, and then you can just call it whatever you want. I'm just gonna be calling it controller characteristics. And that's a first variable. The second one is we're trying to ensure that you don't have to rewrite the script for every platform that you'll be working on. Not rewrite, but change out every controller. So we want to have a list of all the models for the controllers, and for doing that we're going to do a public list. It's going to be our controllers. It's going to be game objects, and we're just going to be calling it controller models, and that will cover I'm sorry, that will cover all the model references for all the controllers. The next thing that we want to cover, next variable that we're going to be making, it's going to be a private input device. We just can call it target device. And the last variable that we're going to be making is a private game object, and it's going to be a spawn controller. And basically what that would be covering is you'll be grabbing from the list the right controllers, and we're going to throw it in there, and then we're going to initialize that object instead of initializing the list. So in the start menu we're going to leave that open for now, and also the update, because we need to initialize the controllers, and most of the time you would think we should do it in start, but we don't know if the controllers are actually active or not, and if they're not active then it's just gonna it's not gonna register the controller, because you only have a start that will be initializing it. So instead of doing that, we will be doing a void try initialize, making our own class, and then from there we will be calling it from the start, just to see if there's a controller. And what we'll be doing in the void is you're gonna be making the list of input devices, and we're just going to be calling it devices, and it's going to be equal to a new list input devices. And basically what this would be doing is it will look at all active devices. So it would be looking at your headset, and then also picking up your two hands and putting it in a list, because we're going to be needing that for getting reference to the hands. Input devices dot not that one, input devices dot get device with characteristics, and we're gonna be doing controller characteristics devices. And basically what's going on here is we are first checking which hand we are active, the value that we'll be setting there, and the second thing that we'll be checking is if the device actually corresponds with the hand or with the model. Next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure give me a second, I need to close it down and open it back up. I don't know what button it is that's doing that, but anyway, you have to make sure that the devices list dot count is greater than 0. Because you don't want to initialize things if there's no input devices actually active. Otherwise it's just going to throw out thousands of errors. If it is zero, greater than 0, we want to do a target device is equal to devices, and we want to grab the first device, and we're gonna check if game object prefab is equal to controller models dot find, and we're gonna go and controller equals greater as controller dot name double equals target device dot name. Basically what this is doing is we are going through all the devices and paying for the very first one in the list, that would be a controller, and we will be looking at the controller that we found's name. Why this is necessary is because when we go to our models and you see each of the models have a strict name, and what that basically do is it's gonna look at what headset you have and the first controller, and it will take the name of the controller and go through the list that will be populating with controller models and checking if the controller name is actually in that list. And if prefab, so if there is a model with the same name, we're gonna be going to we're gonna be setting the spawn controller can be equal to instantiate the prefab at the transform, if I can type. So once the controller was verified that there is another controller in the list with the same name, we're gonna be putting that controller in the spawn controller variable, and then we're gonna also initialize the controller at the same position of the hand. But if controllers, if there isn't a controller in the list with the exact same name as the input, as the controller's name, we're gonna be doing a debug.log error and we're just gonna say controller model not found, and then we're just going to be assigning a basic controller for it, and it's going to be spawn controller be initialized by controller models zero, comma transform. Well, I've been speaking about controllers for all time and the models, but you guys might need to know where to actually get the resources for the controllers. In the bio, a reference to the controller package would be there. It's just all the basic controllers of the Oculus, the Rift, and the Vive. Just the basic models. And if you don't want to download the packages of a package with the controller models, if you have SteamVR installed on your system, you can go to where it's installed. You have to make sure that SteamVR is installed, sorry. And then you're going to go to Steam, you're going to go to Steam Apps, Common, SteamVR, Resources, and Rendered Models, and you'll find all the models for every controller that is in the VR space, from the Oculus Quest to the Vive. All of them are in here, the 3 models of them. So if you have SteamVR installed, you can find all the controllers there, but it would be a bit messy, but it's easy to clean it up and just get all the controllers and all the models and their textures, and then you can just import it. Now going back to our hands, we actually have to quickly populate I'm so sorry. We have to actually populate the controller models, and the very first model that we have to put in is the default controller, because in our script we said if there isn't a controller picked up, it should go to the default model, and I'm just using some of the older controller as a default. We're going to hands, putting the first one in the list, and then the rest we can just populate in there as well. And you'll see there's a default has to be at element 0, and the rest of them could be scattered. It doesn't really matter because we won't be actually calling them through their number. We'll actually go and look for their name and referencing it to the controller that's active. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is, that's all animation. Next thing that we want to do in the update is actually see we actually need to call this try initialization. So if the person lets go of the controller and picks it back up, it will actually reference it again, but we actually need to see if controller is active or not. So we're going to say if not target device dot is active, is valid. then we're gonna call that initialization. And basically what this does is it checks for the device. It's gonna check if that device actually has a value. If a device doesn't have a value, it's gonna try to give the device a value. So it's just gonna be initializing it constantly until it has a value. Okay, and that should be everything for the base controllers. So one thing that we're gonna have to do now that we actually set up the controller is we're gonna take this object, we're gonna make it a prefab, and then we're gonna go to our XOR rig, go to the left hand, and I can actually do that there. And we're going to call this prefab left hand, and this one right hand. And why we're actually making two prefabs and not just one, delete that one, is because of the controller characterization. We will be putting it as controller, and that's left hand, and the right hand is going to be controller and right hand, and that will ensure that left hand is left hand and right hand is right hand. Oops. Right hand. Okay. Now that we've got the controllers, let's quickly test it. There's my controller, it's the right hand one, and this is the Oculus Quest 1's controllers, I think, or the Rift, and I'm actually using Quest 2, but the reason why that is something that Unity has to fix with their XR platform, because the Oculus Quest, the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Quest 2 has the exact same name of when it comes to active device input name as Oculus Touch controllers. That's just one thing that they should definitely change in the future. If you want to know where I'm getting this data from, you can go to Analytics, XR Integration Debugger, turn those guys off, and see all the data is press play, and then you'll see the headset. That's all the variables that comes with the headset. And if I activate my left controller, you would actually see all the data from left controller. And again, sorry about that, my Unity crashed for a second there. But yeah, you'll find all the data on there where it actually showed the controller name and all the values of the controllers. In the next episode, I see we're already having at 30 minutes. In the next episode, I will be setting up the hands. I don't want to make these videos too long. But yeah, that is just making the basic controllers, of actually showing the controllers or just showing objects applications of the controllers. In the next video we'll be covering actually setting up the hands and also animating the hands. Until then guys, enjoy the rest of the day, Happy New Year, and I hope you all enjoy your new year. Hopefully it's better. Cheers.